Everybody, to another episode of Beyond the Case podcast, which is a podcast where global leaders from Harvard Business School's OPM community join in a personal capacity and they share the real decisions, failures, and mental models that go behind building enduring companies. My guest today is the most famous person from OPM 67, the friendliest person at OPM 67. It's Faisal Charania. Faisal, do you just want to introduce yourself, your business, and tell us about what you do?
So my name is Faisal Charania. I'm primarily good friends with Sohin Shah and the rest of the OPM crew. OPM 67 is ours in particular. But I am actually a very cool or uncool tax lawyer by training. I then pursued mergers and acquisitions law. And I still hold my licenses, but I don't actively practice obviously as much as I used to, but I've really just had the opportunity to walk with kings and queens. That's really been my luck and my blessing that I've had a very I think unique journey to help some good companies, and so translated my learnings into small business and hopefully beyond.
And Faisal, what are you doing today? What's the name of your business?
So it is Dogwood Brands Company. I'm wearing my cool hat. I love the swag, but we are a franchise platform and asset management company. So we own and operate numerous different brands. Currently, we are primarily in the retail services businesses like hair salons and beauty bars.
Do you have background in franchising or running franchisees?
Yes, so I grew up in this space like any good ABCD might. My father left engineering when I was 5 years old. I guess he was in his mid 30s, but he opened up Subway sandwiches in 1987 in Mesquite, Texas. I remember helping sweep the parking lot. I helped build the stores. Some of my fondest memories from, the suburbs of Dallas and Mesquite. Actually, on our website, it's kind of funny. There's never a need to go to Dogwood's website because we're a franchise company and we thankfully work with great brands and great IP and great marks. But there's actually a picture on the website of a converted milk truck that we used to ride around in, and I would ride around and bop around in as a little kid, and we would deliver those party subs in the 80s. So very, very fond memories. We still have a couple of units from those portfolios up in Dallas, and I guess no matter how hard I tried to get away by being a tax lawyer, going to law school, all of this, I ended up back in the holy game of small business in America, which is frankly the best business out there, and drives a little pitch for us small business folks, drives 70% of the American economy. 70% of the United States' GDP is garnered from small business, and every other country in the world is trying to achieve that same percentage because it's a pure diversification of the economy.
Very well said. And that's why US is the land of opportunities, right?
Absolutely. And, you and I, for example, maybe being first generation, our children then being first or second generation, it truly is. And it is, and it's kind of, what I say to my team, and I say to myself as much as I can, and they tell me it's, the only easy day was yesterday. And, we have to leave it all on the field. We try our absolute hardest because it's not only is there opportunity, but there is so much pleasure and so much learning and so much, frankly, opportunity in the journey itself. So it's an amazing place for me to be on this podcast. By the way, it's my first one ever, so forgive me if I'm a little nervous, but I'm glad it's with you. So I feel very happy to do so.
Oh man, I'm honored. Thank you for agreeing to be on this podcast.
No, of course.
Yeah, so you were growing up, you see your dad running Subway franchisees, and then you decided to go to becoming a tax lawyer. What got you interested in tax law out of everything?
So mom is a doctor. I did end up marrying a beautiful Desi doctor as well. My grandmother was a doctor back in South Asia before, when India was just one large country, back in the 90s. But so I was pre-med, like a good student should be. But I was also chair of my my fraternity. I was very active in the South Asian Student Alliance at that time. And so always tried to be quite dynamic. That didn't necessarily yield a great lifestyle for pre-medicine. So organic chemistry at 8 a.m. every day wasn't the easiest. So I ended up switching. At that time, I was biology and economics, so two separate majors. And then I ended up graduating with political science and economics. So I dropped bio, did poli sci. I told my parents that I'm going to be a much better lawyer than I would be a doctor. And so that's how it played out.
How long were you a lawyer for? How many years did you work professionally?
So I founded Dogwood. I was very lucky to found Dogwood in 2019. So I'll say I practiced pretty much all through 2019 too, or most of it. So I practiced from 2008 until 2020. So that's when I was first licensed back in Illinois. And I have my Texas license too. So, about, 12 some years. And now that I look at it, I've been licensed, almost 18 years. So time just goes that fast. I still remember taking the oath, and I remember tearing up when I had to raise my right hand, saying I'll uphold the Constitution and defend it. And I felt a very great responsibility to kind of carry those words forward. So, but now I'm in private equity, so I don't have to do much with the Constitution, and I'm in small business. We deal with, just the very basic levels and interactions of society.
And then at what point did you realize you wanted to transition from law and corporate roles into entrepreneurship and private equity? And what did that shift feel like?
Oh gosh, it was, I want to say now that it was scary, but I don't know why. In the moment, it never feels like that. Um, I think one of the hardest things was managing my own schedule, right? Because I had gone from a two job and, worked very long hours throughout my career, as a typical lawyer. My wife, my boss, she played a big part in this. This was definitely a large part her idea. I've got a great network of family and friends that basically said, "Hey, why don't you go out on your own and start acquiring for the family?" And so, because that's what I've always kind of done is acquire. I'm somebody that rolls up fragmented industries, and then we pass that on to the much more sophisticated players. So, it's, I don't know, the whole idea was to put an A and tax lawyer in the driver's seat, and this is where we are now, almost 7 years later.
How did you go about raising money for the first acquisition that you made?
So we have only done family and friends. We have been very, very conservative. We actually, in the GP, right? So Dogwood Brands, we pretty much almost self-funded it, very, very tiny amounts of capital. I went without a salary. Even now, my salary has not changed since right after inception. We've kept it very, very stagnant. Same thing with any fees that we charge for asset management. But that's the duty, right? It's the honor of working in this business. All right. So we have had some institutional opportunities. I think as time goes by, I've noticed we get more and more of those. I think that we have, especially in the small business environment, we have been well served by being very dynamic. We have to be very intentional. We have to be very self-aware to be willing to fold, right? You have to be able to change process, change plans quickly. We have a number of legacy employees that have been at our company, for some of them with some of these units for over 30 years. So in some of my units, I'm very lucky, but they're older than you and I. So they have lease inception dates before we were born. And so, I am just kind of a steward at a point in time, my brother. And, I was reading this quote, which I think is very, very true. It's, Rumi says you have to live life like it's rigged in your favor. And I really feel like almost every experience I've been given, even the negative ones, have turned out to that. Like imagine OPM 67, what a dynamic crew. What, just an amazing class. Even our name, 67, was the word of the year. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, come on, dude. Like it's just, I don't know. It's just very, very lucky. And it's because of this luck that I think that kind of our cultural ideals and preferences of duty and education really come into play, right? I do feel a big responsibility, and a lot of my actions are very much driven by this duty mindset. So
What I want to ask you next is, as CEO of Dogwood Brands, you are aggregating or multi-unit franchisees, businesses across sectors at scale. Are there any core principles that you have which guide your decision making when you're evaluating new acquisitions?
absolutely. Hyper fiscal conservatism. It's I always try to be very positive, right? I've always been kind of a cheerleader inside because I believe it, right? I really do. I really, really enjoy people. I really enjoy helping. But what I can say is, you always got to have a smile and you always got to, kind of bear it. But, it's almost my stoic kind of training is if anything, and it's Murphy's Law, if anything can go wrong, it will. It's in acquisitions, revenue is probably one of the few real indicators. Your sales and use taxes are some of your very few real indicators. When people tell you an EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, or and a multiple associated with that, you have to be very cautious. And so when we try to do multiple acquisitions, acquire on scale, we really want to try to folks to, have skin in the game. So try to have earnout components, etc. So, the one of the constants is be extremely fiscally conservative. Um, be willing to think outside the box and create new structures that can serve both parties well, right? And that's the beauty of kind of business in the US, right? It is you can draft contracts to reflect what the parties want to do. And so you have a lot of freedom of contract in this country. And so you can really think of unique, cool, and very profitable things for both parties, right? To reach a compromise. So that's what we try to utilize, and especially if you're trying to go fast and at scale. So that's why mergers, a lot of times I think you're going to hear this word more, is merging is often considered less risk than acquiring, right? Because both parties are contributing. So I think, our generation, Sohan, for example, was more acquisition in the last 15, 20 years. I think you might start hearing more about mergers. I think the cycle is now maybe switching a bit.
What do you look for in businesses when you're acquiring them? Are there any key
Absolutely.
metrics that you look for? Any key ratios?
They have to be asset light, okay? Or contrarian, they must be asset heavy. So you're either going to go extremely asset light into things like we do, like services, retail, youth sports, right? Like Kiwi soccer, or very heavy like swim schools, right? Because then my tax lawyer comes out and and especially with the big beautiful bill, there are some great tax benefits in there. So asset light generally, we prefer that there are, labor percentage of labor to revenue should try not to exceed 30, often does, especially in the Southwest United States or the Northeast where you live. Where I live here in the South, it generally stays around there. But then again, the economics aren't as strong down here. In New York, things cost almost double. Why? Because people get paid more. So when you're looking at it net, that's why you see businesses still going to New York and to California. So asset light, we prefer that, you know, obviously low cost build outs if at all possible. Um, you know, Decent revenue streams. We don't really look at EBITDA anymore because that is once again a lot of in our minds fluff, but we can generally calculate EBITDA better than the seller can of what their business is worth. But those are those constants, right? The rent roll being at 15 to 18% these days. You're seeing it at 21, 22, things like that. I mean, there's going to be these threads, and in particular, though, another one is subscription model, right? We love subscription model businesses.
How big is your business scale today? How many units or businesses do you own?
So today we own in part quite a few because we're also investing in these businesses, but we actively operate 60. So that's the core mothership, what I call it, across 3 states, about 300 employees and about 20 million in revenue is the core business. And then we have other investments and other projects that we participate in as well.
So private equity and M&A can be messy and complex. And given the fact that you're managing about 60 different businesses, what is your philosophy in keeping culture consistent across so many different business units? How do you stay on top of that?
So that's a great question. It has to be at the top of your mind. Um, uh, you know, like our parents taught us, actions matter more than words. So for example, I travel on miles only. So yes, Seema, my boss, and the kids, those are my gods. My mom, yeah, everybody, mother-in-law, they travel however I can afford to let them travel. I only travel on miles. I use my franchisee discounts for Marriott. Don't tell anybody. But I use franchisee discounts, right? So that's where I'll pay a lot less on a hotel room, like even less than a Motel 6. We haven't raised my salary in what, 5 years. Like I make substantially less than I did at in my prior jobs, and substantially less, frankly, Seema reminds me, than I could at the market right now, than just as working as a lawyer, or even some combination. You know, I think part of the entrepreneurship journey is really loving your business. Like I love this company. I love all the people in it. And that's what I love. I don't love the company. That's not true. I love the people in it. Like I really do. And I can't tell them that all the time, especially in my role. And frankly, I can almost never tell them that. But that's why I do it. I mean, we can, by the jobs we do, we can change people's trajectory. We can change the trajectory of their surnames, man. There's people, for example, who grew up in whatever parts of the world. Like my mom grew up very, very poor. There's people who grew up in Appalachia here in America. We can literally take them from, for example, middle class, lower middle class, even poverty, into a different trajectory for the next 100 years by providing education, money, learnings. Um, so that's why I love this job. And remember, like how many, if not thousands of people depend on the wages we pay. So it's truly an honor to do this job. And that's where, if you're doing it just for the cash, I don't know if private equity, because like you're saying, like culturally, to maintain that culture, the only person that they're going to look at is the owner. And so if I have a low, and that's, by the way, one of my greatest honors was when my teammates, I had the opportunity to increase their salaries past mine. Because obviously at the outset we had to start where I had to pay my mortgage. But anyway, it's just been a great, great honor.
What's your holding period looking like for the businesses that you own?
So traditionally, the traditional hold period we look at is 5 to 7, because that's the franchise cycle. But remember, a lot of things have happened also since deployment. And that's where we also picked the businesses we did. So we first got into these businesses back in 2020, 2021 time periods. Right? That it is quite a different world. So now, with consumer sentiment lowered, with an inflationary environment that is tempering, an interest rate environment that is tempering, I think the typical hold for franchisees might go up to even 8, right, 9, but it's not too long. It's not much longer like we initially thought. When we first saw this happening, we thought, oh my gosh, we're gonna have to hold much longer. But now I think that the hold periods can be up to 8. I don't think they'll be past that. But certain businesses you want to hold. So for example, ours, when we get our investors out, completely, and happily, then we might hold this for some time, because remember, these businesses have already been around for 45 years. So we might just hold them for the next 45.
What does the cap stack for any of our deals look like? Is there a bank involved with senior debt, and then your investors put in the equity along with you? Could you just walk us through the percentages there?
Yeah, so it varies. When we first started, Dogwood would put in anywhere between 2 and 5%, because we don't have any capital. Didn't have any capital back then. Bank debt would be about 60 to 70%. We've been over equitized in our deployments. A typical leverage in our space is 80-20, so 80% debt, 20% equity. We have not raised capital since, at least in our space, since 2022. So we have not, any new deployments we have done just with our own funding. So we've acquired about 20 plus salons just with our own cash, because once again, we're very conservative and we have no need. We don't have a deployment mandate or a big horizon on our tail. Yeah, so that I think has also given us that ability to not just throw money at stuff.
Faisal, we participated in OPM 67 together at HPS. How did that experience shape your leadership philosophy or your strategic thinking?
In so many ways. So I don't have a lot of social media, Sohin. I think I'm not that cool. I'm not that trendy. But what I hope to be is a good observer. And gosh, from OPM, I have drawn more energy and, frankly, great ideas than anywhere else. For example, we've already started implementing customer is the hero policies. We are already implementing senior day at our hair salon so that we can take some of IKEA's market share from 2 to 4 p.m. So, I mean, being amongst the brilliant minds of the globe in that setting, I mean, don't tell my mom. I did not know how much I missed school and how much of an impact it had on me, man. And I don't know, just sitting with you in class, like hearing you talk. I wrote down every single thing, right? And then I sent these pictures to our team on text. So it's I am so pumped to see you in November. Like we have so many
Yeah.
things to do. We're gonna be dressing up like pilgrims. Like, dude, yeah, we have a lot of stuff coming.
Looking back, what's one thing that you wish you had known sooner in your career?
To leave it all on the field. You should gotta love like you're gonna die today, but save money like you're gonna live forever. Right? So I would say really leave it all on the field. And if you abide by the theory that the only easy day was yesterday, then I can't imagine anything going wrong.
Beautiful. Specifically for private equity, what would be some pieces of advice that you would offer?
Well, first, I'm always available. Please reach out. I would say that you have to stay positive, right? Challenges are going to come every single day. You're going to have a call with your accountants one moment, with your teams the next, with lawyers one day. But maintaining, I think, positivity is just absolutely essential because everybody gets down and I don't know, just if they can hear me, it's all going to be okay. This too shall pass, I think, is what I want to tell them.
Well said. Is there a book which has left an impression on you that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, gosh. A Day in the Life of Ivan Devisnovich. It's a very short book. I believe it's by Stolzenitsin. It's just about appreciating the smallest moments in life, right? Find happiness and joy everywhere. Um, I used to be motivated by a fear that there may not be many more of those, but it's really that you have to just embrace it, man, and really love life. And one thing I will leave you with that I've read recently as part of this kind of Stoics thinking is the fear of death dies with death itself. We spend our lives worrying, scared, sometimes nervous, but in the end, it's going to be a-okay.
Very well said, Faisal. That's a beautiful way to end the podcast. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom. And I look forward to seeing you in Unit 2, if not sooner.
Can't wait. So, all the best to your family. Happy holidays. You are a rock star, dude. Thank you for everything.